You finished the Gamers Nexus tariff vid? Bro, that shit was crazy.
We have some paste that is made.
I don't know how they got this access, or if he just has so much like credibility now that people are just like, oh yeah, we trust that guy. But these he's getting a lot of like pretty detailed information from designers and stuff over the cost of how much these like tariffs are absolutely destroying their everything.
In the US, we have some paste that is made in Taiwan, some that is made in Japan, some in China, and then we have to figure out, which product can we use where and how to distribute it. Some products might eventually just no longer be available. So there's not much we can do about it eventually. We have some stuff that's made in Vietnam as well, but that's mostly for accessories.
So out of all those countries, do you happen to know off the top of your head, are if you ship stuff to the US right now for, let's say, like micro...
Piers Morgan dropped on Bill Maher. Is he arguing with somebody, or... Because the one-on-ones on Piers are not as entertaining, I think. Oh, it's him responding to the Larry David essay. Oh, shit.
Larry David, because you're friends, aren't you?
Of course. I mean, this wasn't, my favorite moment of our friendship.
Larry David is using his pen to point out what he sees as Bill Maher's misguided meal with the president, and his even more misguided monologue.
Just for starters, he laughs. I've never seen him laugh in public.
I don't need to be lectured on who Donald Trump is. Just the fact that I met him in person didn't change that.
He's Hitler. He's a monster. But I eventually concluded that hate gets us nowhere. I knew I couldn't change his views, but we needed to talk to the other side, even if it had invaded and annexed other countries and committed unspeakable crimes against humanity.
Oh, man.
And I realized I'd never seen him laugh before. Suddenly, he seemed so human.
To use the Hitler thing, first of all, I just think it's kind of insulting to 6 million.
Oh my God, stop this. Stop the virtue signaling so hard on it. Let me just, Hitler, okay, did not spin into existence in 39 or 40 or 41 or 42. Hitler did not spin into existence in the Holocaust, okay? He had a whole ass life prior to this, all right? That's the type of stuff you should be worried about.
Yes.
Dead Jews,
People are accusing him of moral cowardice and hypocrisy.
I don't want to make this constantly personal with me and Larry. I mean, we might be friends again. I don't know.
Here we are in Bill Maher's lair.
Also, hold on. Unless I'm missing something, we might be friends again? Larry David is criticizing you in an essay. That's fine. You should be able to do that. I don't think anything... Is he really that sensitive? Not Bill Maher. That sensitive? That would be kind of goofy. I don't know why he's talking like that, but...
Yeah, lair.
The Club Random podcast lair, but it was your lair before that.
Oh, no, I thought they were going to talk to each other. Ugh, okay, whatever.
Anyway,
It's still my lair. I will always have a lair. I'll give up everything before I give up my lair. My evil lair where I plot evil things. I'm evil.
I'm told that very famous people come here because they want to party in private, and this is the most safe place, safe space for celebrities who want to misbehave. Is that true?
That's so true. I mean, what happens at Club Random probably is still spilled on the floor, and I mean that of everything. No, this was always the party house before
Epic.
It was the I feel like I have
The party house.
a wonderful part. I mean, to do a podcast has really been. I mean, you were here.
Yeah.
How much fun is that? Just to
Why
get
don't you have a lair? Makes you think I don't have a lair.
high and drunk with somebody.
I was one of your first guests on the podcast.
Yes, even if you're not participating, and I don't really get drunk, but it's the only drinks I allow myself in the week. And to get to know somebody, I mean, I knew you, but I didn't know you as well.
Yeah.
I feel like after that, I knew you so much better.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Because you kind of have to like spend a couple of hours high to get to know somebody.
I loved Charlie Kirk when you did him last week when he said,
I don't know how to say this. I don't actually even know if people know this intuitively. It feels like in life, people think that the big moments in your life, okay, let me give you, as an old timer now, okay, 36, okay, as an old timer, people have this weird assumption that in life, the important things are going to be these really big moments that test you, where you really have to stand up for the things that you believe in. And these are the like defining things, you know, that really show you what a person is. And there's a small element of truth to that, and there's a large element of falsity to that. The challenging thing in life is to maintain a character such that you are consistently making virtuous and beneficial decisions day in and day out that are building towards a better version of yourself or a better whatever it is that you're after. This is the thing that is important. This is the thing that matters more than anything else. Anybody can be really mean or really nice in short spurts of time or like off camera, but this is why I don't like listening to religious people or philosophers or whatever talk about their shit, and then it's like, oh, but also I'm super pro-Trump. Like, oh yeah, let me talk about how important it is to be moral and virtuous and all this stuff. Oh, but also if you don't vote for Trump, I'm gonna fucking hate you because DI and woke is too much for me. And it's like, okay, well, hold on. When you talk about these moral and virtuous things, where are you applying these to? Like, what part of your life or what decisions are you making where these things are actually being applied? And this idea that well, how a person acts off camera to me in person, that's the important thing. No, it's not. It's easy to be to be nice and funny and charitable and affable and charismatic to a person in a one-on-one environment. That's easy. There's no incentive not to be. If anything, I'd be surprised if Trump was a huge ass monger in person. Why would he be? You're there, you're hanging out, why wouldn't you be nice? Somebody being nice to you in person and then being a horrible person publicly, if in some ways is even worse than just always being a cockbag. And I don't understand how that's not the most obvious thing in the world. Like all the people who are like, Andrew Tate is so nice. Like, yeah, no shit. He's a literal fucking scam artist. Of course he's fucking nice. That's his job. His job is to be nice to people, is to be a scam artist. How is this a beneficial, or how is this a pro to you? Like, you would not understand that? I don't know. This is really cringe that people get so, I guess, like, fooled by that. Or I just feel like, the fuck? Come on. Do better.
But it was probably the nearest he's ever come to taking drugs.
Well, he is religious, and that is a drug. Very religious.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because there's so much happening. The Pope has died. How do you actually feel about that? Do you have any feelings about it? You were raised a Catholic, and around the age of 13, you kind of gave that up. You discovered your mother was Jewish. Your father, I think, stopped taking you to church because he didn't like what they were doing in various issues. I think in terms of birth control and stuff like that. So
Yes.
that was your upbringing. Did you feel anything when the Pope died? Do you feel any feelings about that kind of thing as a former Catholic?
You're triggering me right now. I'm still processing it, Piers, and I hate that you did this to me on camera, and I have to go through my grief. No, I mean, we were talking in our meeting today about what should we talk about it on the show on Friday, and I said, I think it's, first of all, look, I know there are 1 billion Catholics, and many of them do care, but...
I am one.
Oh, okay, great.
Just to, FYI.
No, I'm glad you threw that marker down, bro. It's just more interesting to me who the next cross-dresser is going to be. I mean, this guy was, a mixed record, I think we would say. Did he move the needle a little forward on liberalizing the church? I mean, you mentioned my father. By the way, for the people listening and might think, oh, he found out his mother was Jewish, then he quit the church. Nothing to do with each other.
No.
Just that around that same time, I was about to receive my first communion. First communion I did, my, confirmation. And that's why I don't have a middle name, because I never did it, because my father did pull out of the church at that time, just because he did not like the politics of Pope Paul. He loved Pope John, who was the liberal pope, and liberalized a lot of things in the church. And my father, a good democratic liberal, it was a period after the Kennedy assassination. The country was in a cynical mood. And, my father loved Kennedy and he loved the Pope. And, for an Irish Catholic, that was a great time. And then Pope Paul came in and, he was kind of old school. And I think we went back to, turning our back on the congregation during the Mass, all that kind of stuff that Pope John was good at getting rid of. You know, I think the folk Masses started then, you know, a little more hip, you know, and to the people. And my father would meet on Friday. I think a lot of people around the world who couldn't afford it, that was a big thing when they lifted that. So food wouldn't go bad, shit like that, practical stuff. And my father just didn't like this Pope Paul to the point where he did, you know, stop us going to church, which was like the greatest day of my life. I didn't care why it was, or, you know.
You went every Sunday. I mean, you were a proper...
Every Sunday. And catechism before church, where you learn, and then the training.
Are we going to get at anything interesting here? Or? Oh, okay, maybe.
The first communion, which traumatized me. But so
Did you ever go to confession?
Of course.
Did you?
Of course you went to. How could you? My heart was beating out of my body. First of all, it's just creepy. It's in this little booth, and the guy's sort of on. You kind of can see him opaquely, and you think you're 7 years old. You think he's got the power to do anything to you, and like you would. What sins could you possibly commit at 7 years old?
In your case, I would think that you probably had found a way.
I don't know. I was a scared little child. I didn't know. What sins could you do at 7? I don't know. I don't remember. That's a great question. What sins? I would love to find deep in the recesses of my mind, what did I tell the priest? Because I remember thinking, well, I can't go in there empty-handed. That'll look suspicious. So, you know, but I wasn't masturbating. I didn't think about women. Lying, I don't remember even lying, you know. I don't know. But my mother did tell me, after my father died, that up until the end of his life, he was a little conflicted about it. You know, he was raised in a Catholic era where, first of all, just marrying a Jewish person was not cool, and he did it anyway.
Damn.
But it gets in your brain. I mean, you ask me what I feel about the Pope, not too much, but when I do walk into a church, as I had the occasion to do when we were making Religious, it's not holiness I feel, it's fear. The fear comes back to me. Yes,
Based.
it is triggering about fear, because
the fear of God.
Nuns were mean to me. I mean, in catechism,
you should be afraid.
Priests, they didn't do anything to me, and I'm a little insulted.
Stephen Woodford, based bonger under alias Rationality Rules, is dropping banger videos here on YouTube. Our streamer should befriend him. Besides being super based, he is also well read, spelled R-E-D, and knows both how to structure arguments and tell fun stories. Go see. Okay, I'll think about it.
I was a very cute kid, so their loss is all I can say, Piers. Anyway, I'm glad you stuck with it. Somebody's got to stick with it.
When was the last time you went to confession?
Oh, confession.
I mean,
well, it must have been right before we quit, when I was around 13.
Right. So you've got, well.
Yeah, there could have been some sins then that would be more interesting. I certainly was.
Well, I'm more wondering if you went back to confession now.
Oh.
The full scale of post-13 sins to
well,
today.
If I went to confession now, odds are the priest is the one who had more to confess than me. Let's be clear about that.
I've been in America for nearly 4 weeks on this trip.
Did somebody say
only
epic?
3 people have been in the news that entire time. Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Bill Maher. So my first question is, do you like being the story rather than talking about the stories?
You know, it comes with the territory. I never try to do that. You know, it's a little more going on in the week, but I've been through it enough that, you know, it's like, it's actually flattering that people really think that I have somehow have this importance, which I plainly don't. It's ridiculous. You know, I mean, I was offered a chance to actually sit down for an extended period of time in a private setting with the one person who has dominated all of our lives, whether you like him or not, for the last 10 years. That's just not deniable. I took it. I can't imagine why anybody wouldn't take it. Just can I see the Trump adopterist up close? I'm going to get.
I mean,
to see
nobody
it.
would criticize you for taking it. It was for
the
being
only thing
cringe
that bugs
about
me
it.
about it is they don't give me proper credit for. And then I went back to my day job, tearing him a new asshole, and never stopped before the dinner, never stopped after the dinner, and during. Because I said lots of things to him that you would think liberals would love that a guy said right to his face. You didn't win the election, and birtherism was vile, and what? I said to him, you're scaring people. Why do you want to scare people so much? So
Epic.
I haven't changed at all, and the fact that it made so many people hysterical, not most people, by the way. I mean, I've certainly heard from zillions, and it's mostly very positive. But yeah, there are some people, sometimes surprising people.
From tariffs to market turmoil, things are looking pretty rough out there.
It's been a while since I've seen an ad.
American
getting nervous.
Gold has an answer. There are many new threats to financial stability, a full-blown trade war, a fluctuating stock market, an uncertain bond market, stubborn inflation, and colossal national debt. If you're still relying solely on paper assets, you could be heading straight into the storm. So what is the solution? Well, a simple and tested one is to get out of the chaos and invest in something real. Physical gold and silver. American Hartford Gold is a company you can trust. They've got an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and a proven reputation for making the process simple, safe, and smart.
That's crazy,
you can have gold
Chad.
and silver delivered directly to your doorstep or placed into a gold IRA with major tax advantages. Mention my name, Piers, for up to $15,000 in free silver on your first purchase. Call 866-692-2474 or text Piers, that's P-I-E-R-S, to 65532 or follow the link below. Well, let's talk Larry David, because you're friends, aren't you? Were you friends? Are you friends?
Yes, of course. I mean, this wasn't, my favorite moment of our friendship, but, look, I don't want to get in too much into that, but I think the minute you play the Hitler card,
that's what I think.
You've lost the argument.
Yes.
And also, I must say, come on, man. Hitler, Nazis, nobody has been harder about and more prescient, I must say, about Donald Trump than me. I don't need to be lectured on who Donald Trump is. Just the fact that I met him in person didn't change that. And the fact that I reported honestly is not a sin either. But, to use the Hitler thing, first of all, I just think it's kind of insulting to 6 million dead Jews, that should kind of be in its own place in history. And, I know people can say, well, we're just comparing it in this way. Well, it's an argument you kind of lost just to start it. It's just, look, maybe it's not completely logically fair, but Hitler has really kind of got to stay in his own place. He is the goat of evil, and we're just going to have to, I think, leave it like that. So,
It's a very dangerous assumption that there's some uniquely evil person and nobody else for the rest of human history could ever match that. That's a very, very, very dangerous assumption, but okay.
Did I think that was appropriate? No, but people have the right to...
Did you know he was going to do it?
Of course not. And people
so how did you find out?
You read it?
Somebody, my publicist said, this is going on today and you should know it. And I was like, oh, okay. Have
you had any contact with him since?
No. And that's okay. Look, my whole reason to go into the White House, I said it right at the beginning of the speech I made about it, was, talking to Kid Rock right here, and we were just like, there's got to be a better way than just hurling insults from 3,000 miles away. I mean, maybe, nothing will come of this, but what I know, nothing will. I'm
a little sympathetic, just being a little bit aware of the content that Bill Maher does. I am a little sympathetic because I'm sure there's a lot of people who aren't very aware of Bill Maher, and people have just been so mind-fucked, me included, by like the both sidesers who are fucking everywhere. And then they hear a guy like Bill Maher come out and give this take. And it's like, okay, and somebody else is going to both sides Trump. And Bill Maher has been pretty relentlessly critical of Donald Trump. So I'm a little sympathetic towards, I understand like where his frustration is there. But I mean, like, you got to be mindful that you are working so hard to humanize a guy who is working so hard to dehumanize like every immigrant in the United States who might have a tattoo. Like it's this should be pretty obvious that people are going to have a very, I don't want to say emotional take, but people are going to have a response to that. That should be pretty predictable, I think. But.
Come from is pretending to ignore the person who has all the power. Democrats have no power. So to think that your method of running out of the room screaming, "I'm not talking to you," maybe
How would you respond to a private invitation to the White House? Oh, obviously, I would go, of course, for sure.
Thing has a 1% chance of succeeding. Yours definitely has 0.
Not 0. And the final thing I'd say.
I'm also, it's that history rewriting. Listen to how people talk about Donald Trump. Unprecedented victory, landslide victory. You're never going to beat him. Like, this is why you guys have lost so much and why nothing you guys do. And it's like, hold on. You are aware that he lost in 2020, right? Like, you know that this is a guy who lost the last election, like the one before this one, right? Like, you're acting like he's some unbeatable god, and he literally was beaten. So I don't know where this untouchable aspect about him is coming from. It's kind of weird.
About the Larry David thing, because I read it, I was just like you, the moment I saw Hitler, Nazi, okay, I get it. It's that very tired old trope. In fact, on your show once with Jim Jeffries, he told me to fuck off on your show when I said Trump is not Hitler. He hasn't been responsible for the death of 12 million people, including 6 million Jews in the Holocaust. And ever since then, I've just thought every time I see it, this is a ridiculous analogy. But the thing about the point people made on social media about Larry David was that he's been conspicuous by his silence since October the 7th, for example. Not said a word. You've been conspicuous by the support you've given Jewish people on your show.
And the state of Israel.
Yeah.
And also tearing a new asshole to the, what do they call them? I used to call them that. Useful idiots. Who take up the cause of some of the most illiberal people in the world. And I'm talking about Hamas, where they are now, finally we see these protests from the from the people in Gaza against Hamas, because of course, when the useful idiots talk about oppressors, who's really the oppressor of the people of Hamas? It's Hamas. That's who puts their own people purposely in harm's way. That's their whole strategy, is like, well, we can't win this war militarily. The way we can win this war is get enough of our own people killed on purpose so that world opinion, the useful idiots, will fall for that and blame Israel.
That is the whole strategy.
That is the strategy. And some people are clear-eyed about that, and many people are not.
Do you think if you're going to write op-ed pieces for the New York Times attacking you for effectively sitting for dinner with Hitler or the new Hitler, you should perhaps be a little bit more vocal in the area we've just discussed about Israel and the Jewish people, rather than have a deafening silence about that? I mean, people are accusing him of moral cowardice and hypocrisy.
Well,
play the Hitler card, but won't actually talk about the ones who are probably the most similar to the thinking of Hitler, which is Hamas, who want to kill all the Jews. You get my point.
That is an interesting irony. Yes. Look, I don't want to make this constantly personal with me and Larry. We might be friends again. I don't know. I can be. I can take a shot, and I also can absolutely take it when people disagree with me.
Oh, maybe he's worried about Larry being super ass fan.
But again, let's go. The irony. Let's go back to what my original thing was. There's got to be a better way than hurling insults and not talking to people. So, if I could talk to Trump, I could talk to Larry David too. I could talk to anybody. I do it right here. I will talk to almost anybody.
If he was sitting here now, what would you say to him?
I'd say Piers Morgan kept trying to ask about you, and it got over the top. So I said, so yeah, that's it.
Who wouldn't you want to have sitting here?
Oh, there are people who are just pointless, to the Klansmen or neo-Nazis or things like that plainly are beyond the pale. There's no argument.
The Kardashian?
They've been here. Chris has been here. you know, it's a case-by-case basis, but, you know, basically, you know, there are, one of the problems with the far left is that their ideas of purity are so unrealistic, if nothing else, in a country where, you know, Trump did win 2 elections.
Yes.
I mean, you just can't write off. I know I saw it after the election. There was a lot of people who, you know, some I know and some are friends, but their whole attitude was, we're a bad country. That's what it is. We have nothing to be sorry about with the way we ran our election, or it's just, we thought the country was full of good people, and they're actually full of really shitty, horrible people. Deplorables, that whole thing, calling them and thinking of them as deplorable. And I just don't think of a Trump voter as necessarily deplorable. He could be.
But they can think so much, dude. It's such an uneven playing field. It's so crazy how much of like a better human being you're supposed to be compared to how these like the Trumples will treat everybody. It's insane.
Absolutely. And so could someone who voted for Kamala Harris be deplorable in their own way. Now, it's also not equivalent. I make no fuzz on it all the time. I'm very clear about it. I think the right is more dangerous. I think what's going on in this country is a shit show. I mean, shout out to my writers, because we have been as hard on Trump as we ever have. The stuff we do, I mean, if you think I'm the guy to avoid because I'm not going to be hard on Trump now, you're missing actually still, excuse my immodesty, the sharpest, hardest, funniest taking down of MAGA Nation and the right. And, you know, the thing is, I'll also do it on the left but they're not in power now. So they're not getting as much from me, as they shouldn't.
Did you hear from Trump after your monologue? Or?
This is true. I know that he sounds like, I just don't know how many people are familiar with Bill Maher's content. I know he sounds like lay epic centrist right now, but Bill Maher is not a centrist by any stretch of the imagination.
And after the dinner?
I'm not going to comment on any of that. I mean,
I'll take that as a yes.
I mean, we're not buddies.
The IRS is the biggest collection agency in the world. Enforcement is ramped up in 2025, and if you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns, waiting is not an option. The longer you do, the worse it gets. Smart move is to get ahead, but never contact the IRS alone. Let the experts at Tax Network USA handle this for you. Why? Well, not all tax resolution companies are the same. Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS, meaning they know exactly which agents to deal with and which to avoid. They have proven strategies to settle tax problems in your favor, whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million. Tax Network USA's attorneys and negotiators have already resolved over $1 billion in tax debt. You can talk to one of our strategists today. It's free. Stop the threatening letters. Stop looking over your shoulder. Protect yourself from property seizures and bank levies. Don't let the IRS control your future. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Piers. That's Piers. April 15th is upon us. Act now before the IRS does it first. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Piers.
But would there be any reason why that would be a problem anyway?
I mean, here's the thing, I kept my honor.
Yes.
I did not go there and put on a hat and become MAGA and, again, said things to him I'm not sure that people around him ever say to him. Maybe they do, I don't know. But for a country, and I'm certainly one of these people who've been complaining that he's surrounded by ass kissers, I think it was kind of good to infiltrate someone from the other side in there, just to say these things, just to see if, I'm sorry it didn't come out the way you wanted, that he went apeshit about it, but that's just who he is in private. It's just different. And
but I thought you were intellectually honest, because
totally
you actually just said what happened
it did.
And how you genuinely felt about him. I've known him 20 years. I've had
really?
meals with him and stuff. Yeah.
20 years?
Yeah. I did the Celebrity Apprentice. And
okay.
Well, I won that first season of it. So after that, I then became one of his boardroom advisors on subsequent seasons and stuff. Then I went to CNN and interviewed him maybe 30, 40 times in that period.
Wow.
And so I got to know him very, very well. And I still talk to him quite regularly. And I have no problem, notwithstanding all that, in whacking him when I think he's wrong.
Right.
And I think he actually respects
He does.
people that do that.
Yes, that's the impression I got.
What he doesn't like is people who he thinks whack him because they feel that...
I don't think Trump respects people who push back against him, because I think a person like that who does, I think keeps a lot more of those people around than Trump has, and Trump absolutely does not keep those people around.
He ought to. He doesn't mind if he thinks you genuinely believe he's wrong about something.
Yeah, and it doesn't change.
Right.
You know, it's just, again, you know, just don't conflate me being honest about what it was like to see him in private and criticize him privately and his reaction. Don't conflate that with me condoning anything he does or has ever done, because that wasn't part of the equation for me, and it never will be. And, you know, I don't know, you know, he said, you know, he certainly was happy to tell me that night that he had seen the show on the Friday before and thought I would be nicer because I was coming to the White House 4 days later, but you hit me hard. And maybe he's saying that, I don't know, you know, I don't know if he watches every week. He certainly used to tweet about it a lot before we met, and it was always horribly insulting, and maybe that will become that way again. And if it does, okay. I kept my honor, and I will keep my honor. I'm going to call balls and strikes the way I see them everywhere. And to some people, that makes me a hero. And to the people I think are not leading us in the right direction, that makes me the villain. But I'm going to keep on that path. As difficult as it can be some weeks, I like where I am. I've kept faith with the idea from the beginning that I would never pull a punch, either side. And yeah, you lose some fans, but you know, currently I am apparently the #1 show on CNN.
I saw that.
And that's a rerun.
I thought that's just because I appeared on it. I was on your monologue show.
That's a rerun of the show we do on Friday on HBO, which is a more complete version of the show. You should definitely get HBO and watch the real show. But they show a version of it that's slightly less material because they have to fit in the commercials on CNN. So, you know, that CNN audience used to be, and hopefully will be again. I think they're making good strides, I hope, and I think in getting back to the middle. That used to be where the great middle of the country just got its news without, you know, opinion. It wasn't too slided either way. There was Fox, there was MSNBC, but then if you wanted down the middle, you know, CNN.
Well, Ted Turner always said to me when I worked there, he said, never chase the ratings. He said, the ratings will come to you if you're seen to be the impartial one.
Wow.
And I thought there was a lot of merit in that. And I think that the more partisan CNN has been perceived to be, with some good reasons, with some of the hosts they've had, I think that the more they've lost that reputation, the more difficult it's been for them.
And I must say this about them in that battle. A lot of that they could not help because of who Trump is. How do you stay impartial when he is telling a giant lie? Then you have to say the president just lied, and now you've lost.
But I think
35%.
Well, I tell you, I think they're doing it well now. This guy Scott Jennings, who's sort of broken out at CNN, who's the kind of
lonely Scott.
Have we watched his stuff before?
So he's the sort of lone Republican voice all the time on their panels, but he takes.
Oh God, that's not the one that Catherine Rampell or whatever is always fighting against, is it? Not the retard one, is it? Oh God. Okay.
It's on like 3 or 4 of them, and he gives it full barrels. Often tries to defend the indefensible, but does it very eloquently. And it was interesting what he said about what happened with the Larry David thing. Not to labour that point, but just on a general point, he said he thought it was an attempt to stop other people on the left doing the same.
Wow.
But it was actually a sort of passive active intimidation.
Wow.
My question is, okay, where does it end? So a comedian, he's not allowed to talk to Trump. Does that include now senators?
Yes.
Governors? Because I'm just a comedian.
Yes.
You know,
it's ridiculous.
I don't really, but that's where I want to have, what I want to have answered is, how far does this go of who it can't talk to Trump? Because again, as I said last week on my show, he's there for almost another 4 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time to hold your breath. That's a long time to hide behind your binders when you're in the Oval Office. You know, I mean, we can see you. And, you know, I just don't think that method is viable. You know, it's one thing not to talk to a foreign leader. But this is the American president.
It's ridiculous.
I know we don't like him and what he's doing. It is a horrible shit show. It's never been worse. I say it every week. I do a whole show of jokes about it. But it is the American president. It would be different if, for example, we have the hotline to the Kremlin, right? We put that in the Kennedy era because we thought, you know what, as bad as the tension gets with Moscow, isn't it better just to have an open line? And that's a foreign country, and we still didn't yank it out of the wall. It would be easy when just yank it out of the wall, let's not talk. But we didn't even do it with Moscow, but they want to do it with the American president.
Okay.
And I know people are saying, he's not my president. Yeah, both
We get
sides
it.
say
Are we
that
doing anything
when
else
they lose
here?
it. He's not my president. Well, you know what? I'm sorry, precious, but we don't get our own personal president in America. We have elections, and one guy wins, and he legit, I'm sorry, won twice. And by the way, the time he didn't win, I said to his face, you didn't win.
Yeah.
You'd think a liberal would love that somebody did that to the president. You'd think that would be like, nothing for that? Nothing?
I completely agree.
It's crazy.
I told you privately,
crazy.
and I've said it on air. I think you did exactly what you should have done. And this idea that you can't is indicative of the mindset, to me, of why the left has got itself into such a problem.
And again,
especially with Trump, because they don't seem to know how to take him on. Like, what I'm looking for is not someone that just screams at Trump all day and calls him Hitler, but somebody who actually presents
That's what
a
I want.
compelling argument to the American people of how it could be different.
Well,
that is a compelling enough thing where they want to vote for them.
My answer can just be summed up in 4 words. As opposed to what?
Yes.
As opposed to what is the... You don't have the court. You don't have the Senate. You lost the House. You lost everything. You lost everything with your stupid boutique issues and your insistence that Joe Biden was a handsome young triathlete who was
Absolutely
completely
epic and based.
capable of functioning for another term. So now and not having a primary. And so now you have nothing. You have nothing. I said it last week. It's that scene in the movie where they're having a gunfight and then click, click. Oh shit, there's no bullets. I've seen them. Sometimes they throw the gun at the person. Like they throw the gun because they don't have enough bullets. Well, you're throwing the gun. And now you don't want to do that. You know, I just don't know what the alternative is, and there's no good. We're already fucked. By the way, I was the one who kept saying this all those years. I said, if you let this keep going, this slow-moving coup, this is going to get to the place where, you know, honestly, are we really ever going to have another real election now that, they have, he's got his guy in at the FBI. This is what I kept saying. What if he wins again? He's going to replace, you know, the people who stopped him the first time. You know, the Ratzenbergers in Georgia who would not say, okay, I'll find you 11,000 votes. The decent Republicans said no. They're gone. This is what I was warning about. Now the head of the FBI,
Is Raffensperger even
Justice
gone?
Department,
Or-
these are all complete Trump loyalists. Obviously, we see it at the Defense Department. I mean, in that world, he fired the guy who was his own appointee of a commission, the election commission, the long title, I don't
Also,
remember,
that's not
something
for
like
the
security
president
and
or whatever.
cyber, blah, blah, blah.
That's what you
commission.
guys believe, by the way.
And this guy said this election, the 2020 election, was the freest and fairest, and he wouldn't. Now he's going after that guy for basically, he wants to prosecute someone for telling the truth.
But what does it say
about elections?
But what does it say, Bill, about
What does it say about the fact that Trump could do all those things and still win? Wait, but doesn't it say something that somebody could be that bad and still win? Like, doesn't that say something about us or something?
about the Democrats? That Trump was a very divisive president first time round, and then he would argue he had his whole 4-year, 10-year torn apart by the pandemic. There's perfectly valid reasons why partly that's true.
No.
But
Not
then
really.
he was 4 years, or 2 years in the wilderness. Then he made this extraordinary comeback, which was almost totally linked, I think, to what they call the lawfare assault to try and jail him, often over the most trivial stuff like the Stormy Daniels thing, which was the one they finally convicted him on. So you also had a Democrat Party that was getting so...
Just so you know, that Stormy Daniels thing that's so ridiculous, by the way, okay? Republicans will hang their hat on the Monica Lewinsky shit, which was arguably even more ridiculous than the Stormy Daniels stuff. Monica Lewinsky was enough to indict the character of the entire Democratic Party for 8 years, okay? Jesus Christ. But stealing campaign funds to lie about where you spend them in order to have an electoral advantage or whatever by taking illegal contributions, whether they played games with all that money, that's like, come on, bro, give me a fucking break.
Extreme to the left with this woke progressive agenda.
True.
I would watch you week in, week out, and I was saying the same stuff. Because I think politically, I'm probably not far apart from you.
No,
and I was like, I have nothing in common with this. This is lunacy. When you're trying to argue, I saw the British Prime Minister yesterday, Sir Keir
What did he
Starmer,
do?
because in Britain there was a
What did he do?
Supreme Court ruling that a woman is a woman. And a
Okay.
trans woman is not a woman.
Right.
And
Thank
the
God.
British Prime Minister
What did he
actually
say?
came out and said that in light of this, now that he'd had this clarity, we can all move forward. Because he'd said before that only, I think, 99% of women don't have a penis. Right? But my point
That's
being,
just
this
bloody
is the Prime Minister of my great
ridiculous.
country
It's
who needed to be told by a court what a woman is.
Right.
And,
yeah.
and this is where the left have found themselves, right? What is the solution for the Democrats?
I am a man. Well, I am one of the two sexes that Trump is recognizing. But I also understand it's not that simple. Somebody was here, maybe it was Charlie Kirk, and I was surprised that he doesn't think there's such a thing as trans. I do. I just think it's
Piers
just,
doesn't.
Again, there's always a centrist position to me that's so
No
easy that
shot
people
does
would
Piers
just be
believe in it.
reasonable. How about just, first of all, kids too young to understand any of this. Just leave it out. Just leave it out.
Oh, Piers
until
doesn't
they're
say
old
anything
enough
here.
that You don't.
Good job.
They can't understand drag when they're 5. I don't know if it's hurting them, but it's like, come on, man. This is adult stuff. And also, it's not hateful to teach. There is a default setting for humans, and then also teach, but not everybody is. There are minorities that are not. There are gay people, and there are people who are like quote unquote born in the wrong body. Their brain doesn't think like and that happens. And we should be respectful but don't act like every baby born is a jump ball. We don't know what it is. I mean, a penis? Well, please, if you're gonna be technical, I mean, it doesn't
But
really.
people were saying that, weren't they?
It doesn't mean anything. It's a mild indication of something, and we can always cut it off later. All right, I have to cut you off now.
Bill,
always
thank
great
you very
to
much.
see you.
It's great to see you. I appreciate the time in
my
the lair.
pleasure. Always a pleasure.
See you later.
Piers
Wow.
Morgan Uncensored is proudly independent. The only boss around here is me. If you enjoy our show, we ask for only one simple thing. Hit subscribe on
guys.
YouTube and follow Piers Morgan Uncensored on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And in return, we will continue our mission to inform, irritate, and entertain.
Wow.
And we'll do it all for free. Independent, uncensored media has never been more critical, and we couldn't do it
Without you. Thank you. Absolutely, Bayzed.